Okay, I had been thinking about doing this for some time, but due to the distance, I kept putting it off. But I finally bit the bullet and did the research and made the arrangements. And on June 20th, I left. And as you can see, I came back on July the 1st. And until I made this trip, I had been to 48 of the 50 states. Missing were Oklahoma and Alaska. And this trip obviously took care of Oklahoma. And I had been wanting to visit the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so I combined the two since they're relatively close together. And in addition to visiting Tulsa, which is where I started, and then Oklahoma City and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I made some stops on the way out and back to visit other railroad sites, including a number of short lines. So the first day, obviously out the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and then since Latrobe and Greensburg were close to the Turnpike, I decided to stop and visit them. This is the lower level of the Latrobe station, since the line is elevated through this area, and it is now DeSalvo's restaurant. It wasn't open, so I couldn't go inside, although I would have liked to, but it's nicely restored, as you can see. I thought that the PRR Keystone and in the brickwork there looked very nice. I don't know if that was original or not. And you can see the passenger car on the photo on the right. It's actually partly inside and partly outside the restaurant. I went online and checked out their website, and sure enough, most of the car actually is inside the restaurant, and you can eat inside the car. And in the upper right here, you can see where the platform is in the upper level. Fortunately, I was able to get up there. It's not awe-inspiring by any means. And this is the shelter, and this is the only way you know that this is an Amtrak stop, by the sign over the door. I was going to leave because, watched for trains never come, but then I did hear some horns, and fortunately, before I hit the steps, these guys came by. The DPU and the photo on the right. Then on to Greensburg. This is a beautiful station and really nicely kept. This also housed a restaurant and several other businesses in addition to the Amtrak station. I talked to one of the people, to the left of the photo on the left is a restaurant, and one of the guys came out and I asked how to get up to the platform, which again here is elevated. He said unless I climbed up the embankment, since the station was closed, there was no way to get up there. So I decided not to do that. On the photo in the lower left, you can see the Amtrak sign, and it was closed. So the street on the right here goes up a steep hill, and that provided access to where there's one of the platforms where you could see the platforms and the other side of the station. The last stop of the day was at Zanesville, Ohio, and I spent the night there. This is the Ohio Central Yard office. Obviously, that engine that you see sort of in the background there is a former Union Pacific engine. There's a bit somewhat closer view of it, along with two Buffalo and Pittsburgh units. And BMP obviously is a sister Genesee and Wyoming company. And a short distance away were these two Jeeps, both lettered for Ohio Central. Now this switch leads to two separate bridges over the Muskingum River, hence the signal. This is the more northerly of the two bridges. The next day I arrived at Greenville, Illinois, and I spent the night there. And after checking in at the hotel, there were still some lights, so I went to see the local station. But the station looked kind of a bit ramshackle and didn't look like it was difficult to tell if it was actually still being used as this real estate office. This is the street side. You could see why I came to that conclusion. It's just sort of overgrown here. And this used to be the PRR's Vandalia line to St. Louis, now owned by CSX. Day 3, I drove on to Tulsa. On the way, I stopped to visit the Missouri and Northern Arkansas at two different locations. And after I arrived in Tulsa, went to check out the Tulsa Sapulpa Union facility in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. This is the station there. In Aurora, Missouri. That's about halfway between St. Louis and Kansas City. It's now a museum, but again, nicely kept. And that is a former Missouri Pacific caboose. Another view. The station is just off to the left of this photo, and it's now belongs to the BNSF. I did see this guy down the track, and even though, as I say here, the temp was in the mid-90s, I figured, well, it's maybe a quarter-mile walk, and I went down to investigate. Nobody was in the engine, and it was shut down, so, but nonetheless. And this is another facility of theirs. This is Carthage, Missouri. And they had these two signs at the entrance. The one on the left there reminds me of a grave marker. Now this is the building at the Carthage, Missouri facility. Appears to me to be a relatively modern building. It's probably their office building. There was nobody, even though there were two cars, there was nobody there to talk to, so. And just to the south of that building, there were a number of engines visible from the road. And that's Missouri and Northern Arkansas 3026. And the one on the right is of Kyle, another railroad operated by, it's a 555-mile long line across Kansas and eastern Colorado. So that guy was kind of far from home. And I got to Tulsa early enough, thanks to the long days, to check out the Tulsa Sapulpa Union facility in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. And there were two pieces of equipment on display at what is called the Tulsa Trolley and Rail Museum. And it's on the Tulsa Sapulpa Union property where their office and shop is. The caboose on the right had no identification, so, but the Tulsa Sapulpa Trolley, in quotes, there is Maggie M. And from what I could find, apparently the trolley was used locally in Sapulpa by the Tulsa Sapulpa Union, which is a former interurban line. So first thing in the morning, I went to see the Tulsa Sapulpa Union Railroad. After that, I stopped by the Sand Springs Railroad, another interurban, and BNSF's Cherokee Yard, and afterward continued on to Oklahoma City, where I saw the Amtrak station, the Oklahoma City streetcar, and a BNSF train. So I figured these guys would start early in the morning. So I got there early, hoping to see their engine. And when I got there, one of the crew members informed me that they would soon be bringing it outside. And they invited me inside the fence and informed me about the day's work and posed the engine for me, which I thought was very nice. And off they go. That's the nose of my car sticking out on the right there. This was a crossing about a mile or so away from the engine house. And this was the first place that they had some switching work to do. And over to Sand Springs. This was the sign at their facility. And this line was formed in 1911 by industrialist Charles Page to connect his newly formed city of Sand Springs to Tulsa. And they operated both as a passenger carrying an interurban and a freight carrier. Electric service was discontinued in January of '55. And they're now owned by Omnitrax.
Vogel says that the Sapulpa caboose is a former BN.
Oh, is it? Okay. Thank you. And the picture on the left, these guys were moving around the yard here. And it was difficult to find a place to park. So the photo on the upper left was taken with a telephoto. And the one on the right, I shot over a fence just by holding the camera over my head. It took me 6 or 7 shots, but I finally got one that worked. Even though they're clearly marked Omnitrax, the Sand Springs Railway logo is on the side of the cab. So then my couple final photos in Tulsa, I moved to the BNSF Cherokee Yard. And these 2 light engines came by me. Actually, they cruised by me. They hit the switch here, and then they moved the engines back to start making up a train. And then shortly thereafter, this other train came off a connecting line there. This is the Amtrak Oklahoma City station. It's only open in the morning and in the evening, so I couldn't go inside. And there is no access to the upper level where the platforms are, except through the station. And I noticed in one of the model railroad magazines that I got recently, there's a model of this station in both HO and N scales. And that track in the foreground there is part of the Oklahoma City trolley. Oh, excuse me, Oklahoma City streetcar. And they have two routes which are somewhat less than 5 miles. And this is one of the red cars, or pink. This is one of the cars of the other colors. And interestingly, I looked on their website, and even though some of the cars are red and some of them are blue, they designate their two lines, red and blue. And they warn you that the blue cars do not necessarily run on the blue route, and ditto for the red cars. And the other thing that was confusing is neither of these cars was moving, and they sat there for some time. And most of the destination signs said blocked. I have no idea what that meant. And this sign says end of wire, lower pantograph before departing, stop. Well, this picture is at the same location as the one on the previous slide. And it's a reminder for the operators to drop the pantograph before proceeding. And there's no wire over a lot of the system. And that includes 2 spots where they pass under the BNSF right of way, elevated right of way. And like I say here, I didn't have time to check out the entire route, so I don't know how much is under wire and how much is not. Although I did go on Google Earth, and sure enough, some of there's no wire, and some of it there's wire. Very strange. One of the Railfan sites clued me into this, not this particular location, but this particular line, which he called the alley, because it runs down and then rather extensive industrial area between all these industrial buildings. So I was sitting about a quarter of a mile away at another crossing, and these guys sat there for the longest time. So I figured, well, maybe it was a crew change, and sure enough. And the guy just climbing up there had just taken a picture of the train and then got up on the engine. It was close to 100 degrees this day and humid. Okay, on the way to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I made a stop in Ada, Oklahoma to see the station at that place. And then after that, I proceeded to Fort Worth, where I spent a bit of time at the Texas and Pacific station, which is now owned by Trinity Metro. Little side note. When you go out in a lot of these areas, sometimes you lose connection with the internet. But nonetheless, I got to tell you, this trip would not have been possible without GPS and Waze specifically, which is what I used. And it was especially true in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with its maze of freeways and tollways. And it only failed me once on the way to Ada, Oklahoma. I followed its directions, and I was taken to a remote place on a dead-end unpaved road. And it told me, you're here. Well, obviously that was not right. Then I lost all internet connection. So I tried another map app on the phone, and all I could get was a rudimentary map. And at this point, of course, I had no idea how to get back to where I started from on the main road. And of course, the car's compass stopped working as well. Well, I knew I had to go in the easterly direction. So by using the position of the sun, I proceeded. And I think I drove 25 miles on this deserted, unmarked road, and I never passed another car in all that time or a building. So I was really getting apprehensive about this. But finally, I came to a marked state road and was only a few miles outside of Ada, thank God. And of course, at that point, the GPS and the compass started working again. But that's life. I had recently read an article in the Spring and Summer 2025 Railway and Locomotive Historical Society bulletin about pre-modernistic depot architecture of this guy, Lewis Curtis, featuring his, quote, innovative railway station designs. And one of them was in Ada. Since it was only a short side trip, I stopped to see it. And it's on the former St. Louis, San Francisco, now BNSF. Didn't do much for me, to tell you the truth. And it's been used by a number of different businesses, and it's now vacant. As you can see, it's all boarded up. And the station signs and the logo, the Frisco logo, have been removed. Ugly as sin as far as I'm concerned. But wasn't a total loss. The two remote control engines were sitting a short distance away, so it made the photo up. And the next 8 photos were taken at the TMP station in Fort Worth, which is now owned by Trinity Metro, and Trinity Railway Express and TexRail, 2 different operations, use this station. And very conveniently, Union Pacific trains pass by on adjacent tracks. This is a Trinity Railway Express number 569, and these trains operate between TMP Station in Fort Worth and Union Station in Dallas. And I should note that all the stations here were very neatly kept and very clean and very safe. And this is the control car on that train we just saw. And this is the TexRail Vaquero. Apparently, these trains have no numbers that I could find. And these guys operate between the TMP station and the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. Note the buffers. I thought was very interesting. And this is the entrance to the TNP station waiting room. And that guy wouldn't let me inside, even though he was going in to clean the floor. But it seems fairly ornate. If you look up at the top set of windows, you can see rather beautiful light fixture. And while I was here, 2 freight trains passed on the UP. That was this one and this one. Next day, busy day, visited 2 short lines, the Dallas, Garland, and Northeastern, and the Fort Worth and Western, and also Trinity Metro's Fort Worth Central Station, Amtrak's Dallas Union Station, the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority's M-Line trolley, and a DART station, which is Dallas Area Rapid Transit. This is the Dallas, Garland, and Northeastern's yard office in Garland, Texas. And this is another Genesee and Wyoming operation. And at the right is a Kiamichi number 4050, and it's another affiliated company. We'll encounter the Kiamichi later on. These guys took pity on me. The conductor, you can see him on the pilot there. Shouted, so they came by and came screeching to a halt, and I thought, they were going to chase me away. And he yelled something at me, which I couldn't understand. So I went a little closer, and he said, "Would you like some water?" And I said, "Certainly." And he gave me 2 nice bottles of cold water, which I thought was really nice, considering the heat. This is one of their gen sets. Now on to the Fort Worth and Western. This is their Hodge Yard facility, and that's their office building. I was surprised at how many engines there were. And all seemed to be nice and clean and nicely painted. And apparently they're all named. A little closer view of 2008, the Panther City, and the one on the left you can see is the Wyatt Earp. This was a busy place. Relatively modern station. Inside, some of the signage when you come out of the waiting room. And this was nice. This is also at the end of one of the platforms, a restored Northern Texas Traction Company car. And it's sometimes apparently open to the public because there's a set of steps where you can go up and walk through, but it was closed up this day. It was manufactured by St. Louis Car Company in 1913, and they ran interurban lines between Fort Worth and Dallas and Fort Worth and Cleburne. And they shut down in 1934. They were lake housing at somebody's property, and later 25 was donated to the Fort Worth Transportation Authority, who restored it. Additionally, sources I found were not clear, but apparently the company also ran local streetcar services in Fort Worth. On the left there, you see the sign which explains the details of the car, and there's their logo on the right. See waiting room on the left there. I should note that in the 11 days I spent visiting these different places, I was not ever questioned once about what I was doing and so forth. Now was interesting. This Amtrak engine pull into the station. I mean, barely moving. Then he stopped and sat here, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And I thought he was here to help with the backup move that the Heartland Flyer makes to get into the station. They come in on this track here on the left on the upper level, go past the switch behind you see behind the engine, and then back in so people can get on and off. But he left and never returned, so who knows? This is the view at the west end of the platforms, and the far left track is for storage, which is where we'll see later where the Heartland Flyer consist ended up. This is the control car of the train we saw enter the station three slides previously. And this is a Texrail train set named Bluebonnet. I believe that this end is the power end. And this is the another one of their train sets for Cara that we saw at the TMP station earlier. And here comes the Heartland Flyer, almost an hour late. The gentleman on the right in the wheelchair was obviously a rail fan since he had his camera with him and was taking pictures. And there's the Heartland Flyer backing into the storage track. And there's the Trinity Railway Express train leaving. You can see how well maintained the thing is and clean. Next was Union Station in Dallas. And here you can see trains from Amtrak, DART, and Trinity Railway Express, as well as, again, Union Pacific freights. There's the street side view. And the track side view. And the two tracks in the foreground are the part of the DART system. There's some of the signage. This was on the street side. Whoever Eddie Bernice Johnson was. And that's the waiting room on the right. And there's one of the DART trains. Check out their map. They have four rather long routes radiating out in different directions from the center of Dallas, both to the north and to the south. And here we can see two different types of their motive power. And here comes the Texas Eagle. Finally, I forget how late he was, but it was substantial. And the two tracks to the far left are Union Pacific. And here you can see all three tenants of the station. Next on my list of things to see was the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority's M-Line trolley operation. And it's interesting that rides are free and it takes about an hour to ride around the entire line. This is their barn and shop at 2900 Bowen Street in Dallas. Of course, the way I was routed there, they unfortunately I was about half a block away and the street was closed. They were guys there digging up for something or other. And in trying to get around the block, of course, they got lost and got all messed up. The car on the left had no number, but the other two are 636 and 369. And apparently all of these cars have names as well as numbers. And number 636 is Petunia, and 369 is Matilda, and that's appropriate since it's a Melbourne car. Now, 636, which is a single truck car, was built by J.G. Brill right here in Philly in 1920 as part of an order for 25 cars for Dallas Railway Company. And it's a Birney safety car named after its designer, Charles O. Birney of Stone and Webster Company, which owned Dallas Railway Company at that time. And the design incorporated numerous operational and safety improvements over earlier streetcars that permitted one-man operation, allowing the companies to reduce expenses. As you can imagine, being a four-wheeler, it had poor riding qualities. Nonetheless, 636 ran in Dallas until 1947, and the current 8-foot-long truck was fabricated using parts from Melbourne trucks purchased along with car 369, and later shock absorbers were added to improve the otherwise bouncy ride. Now, 369, the bottom photo, was built in 1925 by James Moore Limited for Melbourne and Metropolitan Tramways Board, and was in continuous service for 6 decades before being purchased by Mata in 1986. And most of these cars are equipped with air conditioning. That's what those small white units are on the tops of the cars. Now, this car was built in Brussels, and it's a single-end Westinghouse all-electric PCC built in 1970, interestingly using salvaged components from Johnstown Traction Company PCC cars. And the car was modified in Dallas with new left side doors. And they have these several places along the line where the track pulls over into the parking area, basically, and so that they can get out of the way. And this car is named Emma. And you can see it looks obviously like a PCC car, except it's narrow. And out and about this day also was 7054 Betty. And this is seen on Cole Avenue, north of Bowen Street, which is close to the car barn. And this was built in 1926 by American Car Company for Dallas Railway and Terminal. Originally as a Peter Whitson entrance car, later the center doors were removed when the car was rebuilt for one-man operation. And it was active until the end of operations in January 1956. And you can see later it was moved to Ben Carpenter's house. He was the son of the president of DRNT, and they moved it to Irving, Texas, where it served as a playhouse for his children and grandchildren. And when they all grew up, he donated the trolley back to Mata, and as part of its restoration, it was fitted with trucks and AC traction motors. And this car is the first at Mata to be equipped with AC traction motors and computerized controls. Began service in March 2014. And I can tell you, this thing made some really strange sounds, both starting and stopping. All this kind of, especially when it stopped, this strange whining sound. So it must have dynamic brakes. And here's car 186, the Dragon. And this is the Dart City Place Uptown station, which is underground. And the M line this trolley line runs on a loop through Dallas and it reaches the station on a spur off the loop. And this guy was built by St. Louis Car Company for Dallas Consolidated Electric Street Railway in 1913 and was a Stoner Webster design. And it served 43 years before being retired. And it was stripped of its running gear and electrical wiring and sold to a private individual. He used it for a hay barn in far north Dallas. It was acquired by Matta in 79 and cosmetically restored. And it was originally displayed in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame in Grand Prairie, Texas. Not sure I get the connection, but anyway, when the museum closed, it was donated to Matta, who restored the Green Dragon to running order in 1989. Now you can see it's sitting on what looks like a turntable. Well, it's supposed to be a turntable. And it was difficult to tell whether it was operational or not. And this is the spur. It just goes straight down and joins the otherwise large loop that the cars run on. So I figured I was here, I should go down and check out the station. And it's got to be at least 40 feet below the surface. I mean, there's 8 or 9, maybe 10 levels of stairs to get down. And there's an elevator and a long escalator to go back up. It was a little creepy, to tell you the truth, since there was nobody present and it was absolutely quiet. But a train did come by.
Brad, is that standard gauge?
Yes. My plan on this day was only to visit one of the outlying DART stations and also a busy crossing between UP and BNSF in Saginaw, Texas, which is north of Dallas-Fort Worth area. However, plans do change. This is the Trinity Mills station in Carrollton, Texas. And a guy sitting on the left there wanted to know if I had taken his picture. And since I've been down this road before, I assured him that I had not. Then he had this story that he regaled me with, telling me that someone had taken his photo and used it in a magazine article without obtaining his connection. He claimed it was illegal, and also claimed that he sued and supposedly won a big settlement. I simply sympathized with him and then went about my business. And here's one of the DART train sets. Then, as I was about to move on to my next location, this train pulled into the station. And I found out later it belongs to the Denton County Transportation Authority and is their A train. And this is number 107. And this is a case of no matter how much planning you do, you always miss something. Since I wasn't aware of this operation which runs between here and Denton, Texas. And these cars look very similar to the Texrail trains. Notice again the buffers. So needless to say, I had to go to Denton to see what the story was. And this is their downtown transportation center in Denton. It's really a very small town. And I wonder what kind of patronage the service has. And according to Wikipedia, in 2024, the line had a ridership of 273,000, or about a 900 per weekday as of the first quarter of 2025. And it is the 4th busiest commuter rail line in Texas and the 29th busiest in the United States. So whatever. This is the view at the south end of the station. And you can see there's new condos going up on the left there. And on the left, you see here's one coming in. Next off the Saginaw, where UPM BNSF main lines cross, and the next 5 photos are from this area, that location. This is the UP station. It's not used by the city, but nicely restored and maintained. This is one of the trains I saw. This one was on the Union Pacific. And again, this day was incredibly hot. It was almost 100 degrees. And the only little bit of shade I could find was from a signal cabinet, which was actually rather large one, thank God, and it had a slight overhang, and I was able to get a little bit of shade. And while I was waiting for another train, hopefully on the BNSF, this guy was switching these hopper cars between the grain elevators, and these ones here are reported to be the largest in Texas, and they were big. And after that other guy passed, this train of tank cars came by. And in the foreground are the UP tracks, and they actually cross here. Actually, right near where the signal tower is. This is going to be my last day in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I decided to make another stop at Dallas Union Station and the M-Line trolley. We saw this 2 days before, this guy. It's obviously, there's no question that we're in Texas with the star and everything. You see that red brick building? That's the building, that's the Texas School Book Depository that was used by Lee Harvey Oswald, who killed President Kennedy. And I was hoping to see at least one train come by, and this ballast train came by. And this other guy came by, double stack. And there were 2 kids there taking pictures that day, videos, I should say. This young kid here, who must be, I don't know, 13. And this other kid who seems to be a little younger. He was here with his father. So they are out there. I figured it was almost time for the Texas Eagle to arrive, so I would wait for them to come in, and here they are. And back to the M-Line trolley. I noticed this plaque on this day. I didn't notice it the day before, but it reads the McKinney Avenue Streetcar Barn is dedicated to Phil Cobb in appreciation of his vision and perseverance of returning the historic trolley cars to the streets of Dallas, May 22nd, 1988. Now, Batilda was on that track on the right the day before when I was here, and now it's up on blocks, and the trucks had been rolled out, I guess, for some maintenance. And I have no idea what Trolley Feast is. Now, this car I did not see the day before. This is number 122 Rosie. And this is another storage barn, which is diametrically across the street from the other barn, which we were just looking at. And that car inside is a Toronto PCC. And this was also built by Brill in Philly in 1909 for export to Portugal. However, it's similar to early cars that operated in Dallas. And it was retired from service in 1978, was brought to the US in the early 80s. And Mata got it in 84. And apparently was refurbished for use in San Francisco. And fortunately, then it only needed minor work to bring it into service on Mata. In the late 90s, it received more extensive restoration. It's currently the oldest car in daily service in North America. And the history on the PCC car, it was from Toronto, who was the largest operator of PCCs in the world with 745 cars. Eventually, only 19 remained, used on one route, number 509 Harborfront. And the Toronto PCC era ended on December 8th, 1995, when the last such cars ran on that line. And they were built in 51 by Canadian Car and Foundry, and were extensively rebuilt by TTC in the early 90s. And Mata bought two cars, 4613 and 14. And 14 was refitted with a left side door, put in service in 2019. And 4613 still awaits modification and restoration. And Petunia was inside the barn when I was here the day before, but this day it was out on the line. Day 9, I started my trip home, and the planned stops were Texarkana, Arkansas, and Texas, and I'll get into that a little bit later, to see the Union Station there, and Hope, Arkansas, to visit the UP facility and hopefully catch a train on Canadian Pacific, Kansas City. Now, this is the Union Station building in Texarkana, Arkansas, Texas. It's interesting to me that such a large facility was built here, considering this is a small town, even though originally 4 railroads called here, the Missouri Pacific, the Texas Pacific, the St. Louis Sound Western, and the Kansas City Southern. The structure is on the border. When it was built, it was designated that it had to be right on the border. So part of the station is in Arkansas, the side that I'm taking the picture from, and the other side's in Texas. Bizarre. Now, even though it's on the National Register of Historic Places, it's essentially abandoned. You can see that many of the windows are missing, and there was no access that I could see. Now, Amtrak had an office in the Arkansas end of the building, but now they moved into a small shed. I wasn't expecting to see the Texas Eagle at Texarkana, since one train was scheduled to arrive about sunrise and the other after sunset. However, as I was about to get in my car to leave, I noticed movement in the station area of what appeared to be passenger cars. And here's the almost 6-hour late Texas Eagle coming to a stop. They let the passengers off for a couple of minutes to stretch their legs. This is the only part of the platform, which extends quite a distance actually, behind me, that they let anyone off. The rest of it is really in bad shape. So I made my way quickly up to the other end to get a picture of the engine as they departed. It was funny because the conductor in one of these cars here kept yelling, get on board, get on board. And he was yelling at me. And I had explained to him I was just here to take a photo. So we had a good laugh over that. But you can see part of the station is off to the left here. There they go. Walking back You can see what a mess this platform is at this end. So this is again the Arkansas side, but the picture of the engine was I was in Texas. Now their original office was immediately to the left here, just out of the frame. Next, I headed over to a grade crossing where the CPKC, now this is Texarkana, Texas, hoping to catch a train. When I got there, this BNSF train was sitting on the siding. After waiting for a while, it occurred to me that it was waiting for another train to pass. And sure enough, along came this CPKC train. And I thought it was neat that this engine was lettered Kansas City, Southern New Mexico. Now on to Hope, Arkansas, which is the home of President Clinton, and the UP and the Kiamichi railroads cross here, and you see that all of this business in the next 9 photos. This is the station that's used by Amtrak, which has a small office on the left side of the building, and the rest of it's used by the city, but beautifully maintained, as you can see. Nice terracotta roof. This is the track side. I'm sure this brick wall is here for safety reasons. So there's the Amtrak waiting room. So they only use a small part of the building. This is the nearby freight station. Now these 2 engines are moving a cut of cars off the Kiamichi. And that's the connection to their line, which runs at right angles to the UP. Now, after they had the whole train off the connecting track, they backed down, I don't know, a couple thousand yards. And I'm actually standing on the Kiamichi connecting track. And this is, you're looking down the Kiamichi, looking to the west. And next 3 photos are from Lonoke. I think that's how they pronounce it, Tennessee. I spent the night there. And when I arrived at the station, it appeared abandoned. I thought this is it looked like the Twilight Zone. The lights were off and the sliding front doors were only partially open. There was nobody in there. So there was another hotel across the parking lot. So I went over there to see what was going on. And I found out from the guy in there that the power was off because of a lightning strike. But when I went back over, the lady showed who was running the place, and she logged me in, but the power didn't come on until about 9:30 p.m. Fortunately, the room stayed cool. But this is again owned by the city, and this is a former Rock Island station, and it's on an abandoned portion, the best I could tell, of the Rock Island's line to Memphis. There's a street side view on the left. And on the right, I thought it was nice that they restored the train order signal. Now, this day I stopped in Memphis to see the restored Illinois Central Station. That's the name of it, Central Station. And it's used as a hotel and by Amtrak, who has a platform there. And I also wanted to see the Main Street trolley, but for some reason it was not operating that day, even though their schedule said they operated on Sunday. And after I left Memphis, I also visited the West Tennessee Railroad in Jackson and the Nashville and Eastern in Nashville and Lebanon, Tennessee. Now, the last time I was here about, oh God, 30 years ago. This building was a disaster, and it was not nice and beautiful the way it is now. And the left-hand photo, you can see the trolley stop. It's a closer view of the entrance. And on the right is the Amtrak platform. This was a Sunday, and this is the West Tennessee Railroad in Jackson, Tennessee. And this is their shop building, obviously. Unfortunately, there were some engines sitting outside. And the two on the left are obviously of BNSF heritage. You could see the two different West Tennessee paint schemes. Looks like the one on the left is more recent. And these two Nashville and Eastern engines were available for photo in Nashville. Interesting, the Nashville and Eastern operates a commuter service on a contract to an outfit called We Go Star, and it runs from Nashville to Lebanon, and this is Lebanon. That's my car sitting on the left there.
It used to be called the Music City Star.
Ah. So after a bit of futzing around, I found their yard in their shop area. Their shop. There didn't seem to be anybody around, but then I saw that truck, which you see on the left, and there was a guy sitting in it. So I figured, well, since I had driven pretty far into the facility, I thought I better go ask permission. And he had no problem, but the only thing was I had to stay on the paved road and not get out of the car. So I complied, since he was very nice about it. Doesn't look like Corman letters their engines for their separate railroads. And these were two different types of cars, which obviously have two different types of paint scheme. So this was day 11 and next to the last day, and I thought I'd go see the one of the Star trains arrive. And I proceeded on to Christiansburg, Virginia, where I spent my last night. And it was there that I saw the Cambria Freight Station, which is on NS. And here he comes, 10 minutes early. Only a few people got off. And I could tell you, he didn't linger long. Off he went. Cambria at one time was a separate town, but then it was later annexed by Christiansburg on NS. So kind of a neat looking building. It's now a bookstore. On day 12, July 1st, no photos, just a long drive home through Baltimore and Washington. I had toyed with the idea of going straight up 81 to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I didn't do it, and it was a mistake. But that's life. I made it home safely, so it was a great trip. I saw a lot of new and interesting things. But you can imagine after 12 days, I was glad to get home. The end.